Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will get started in just a moment.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. My name on this.
There we go. I think we're on now.
Muted.
Nice to see you again, Gail.
Hi, Stan's hiding next to me over here.
I figured.
I think since the last time we saw you, when was our last meeting? Do you recall offhand date-wise?
It was 2 weeks ago, so it was the 12th of February.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
before Valentine.
he
Mhm.
was in the hospital at that time then, or did we talk? I don't remember. Anyway, he got a pacemaker. He's home after 19 days.
Ooh, well, I hope it's going well.
So far, so good. He's breathing.
That's excellent news. Yeah.
Doing more than that. I'm eating.
Yeah, if you hear chomping, he's eating lunch.
That's fine. No worries. We'll get started in just a few moments. We'll just see if there's anybody else joining us. And then we have a really fantastic session with Tu and her team today. So I'm very excited.
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in here. Remind me to read you this. We got a big old note from Katie Knies.
Mm.
Thanking us for loving her. What we did.
So I'm Denise. This is my first time with one of these nutrition classes. So nice to meet everybody.
Welcome,
Denise.
Denise.
Thanks for joining and showing your videos.
Yes, it's always nice to see smiling faces or faces on the other end of these things.
Yeah, especially these days, right? It's nice to see everybody smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll give one more minute and then see if there's anyone else that's joining us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And of course, as I say that, someone joins, which is excellent.
Well, these are your discharge papers from last time. I think they showed those.
So, Tu, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabine Mooney, and this is our next in the series, nutrition series programs for Timpany Center. I am a graduate student about to finish in May, and Tu is one of our senior nutrition students, and she's joined by a number of other community nutrition students today, and we'll be talking all about different diets. So I'm going to hand it over to Tu. I'll be moderating the chat, and I hope you enjoy the presentation today.
All right. Thanks, Sabine, for the introduction. So I want to mention about questions and answers. So if we will pause in between each topic, so you have some time to ask questions. So we will let you know when we are open for question and answer, and then you can type your question in the chat box or unmute yourself. All are welcome. And so in the last presentation, we have talked about choosing whole grains food. For those who have attended, I hope you still remember why we are encouraged to choose whole grains over refined grains. It's because it will add more fiber, protein, and vitamins in our diet. Today, we will have an exciting lesson about several popular diets that you might have been hearing from the internet, from your friends, family, or your neighbor. So each diet has its own pros and cons and a reason behind it and this history. So today's lesson, we will focus on breaking down the histories, the science, the pros and cons of some diets. So after this lesson, each of us will know what diet to follow wisely. All right, so let's move on to the first diet that we want to talk about, which is the DASH diet. And I will hand this on to Janine.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Janine, and I'll be starting us off by talking about the DASH diet. Now, this diet isn't the quick on-the-go type of diet like the term DASH may be, but rather DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. The research and practice of this diet started in the 1990s, funded by the National Institute of Health to design a way to reduce sodium intake. So that's about 30 years of intense clinical research and results. The DASH diet is specifically designed to treat or prevent high blood pressure, also known as hypertension. Statistically, in the US, about 1 in 3 people are hypertensive or pre-hypertensive. Other great benefits to this diet are preventing osteoporosis, cancer, heart disease, or stroke.
Hey Google,
And
turn off K-Bay radio.
And people who are diabetic or have gout can benefit from this highly. This isn't, however, a weight loss program, but people following this diet have experienced weight loss due to following healthier food choices. So what's in the DASH diet and how to follow it? Thank you. So the DASH diet focuses on the reduction of sodium intake by increasing foods that contain potassium, calcium, and magnesium, good for the heart and blood. Foods that are emphasized in this are whole grains, fruit and vegetables, low-fat dairy, and overall low in saturated and trans fats. A standard DASH diet recommendation intake is about 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. Or for people who need even lower sodium intake, stick to about 1,500 milligrams a day. If you notice, a helpful reminder on the bottom left corner is a teaspoon of salt, which holds about 2,300 milligrams. So you want to stick to about a teaspoon or less a day. The center picture provides an average number of servings per each day for each category. Factors to pay attention to when consuming these groups of foods is that whole grains have more fiber and nutrients, as we've learned in past presentations about whole grains. And low-fat or fat-free dairy can depend on your specific needs. Fats and oils should highlight monounsaturated fats, so go ahead and check those nutrition labels. And for meats, fish, and poultry, it says about 2 servings per day, or to help you, it's about 6 1-ounce servings, being cautious of limiting red meat consumption. So when purchasing ingredients at the store, you want to be mindful to check the nutrition labels for sodium content, either checking the labels for low or no salt added. And these are for packaged items that are fully contained. When cooking during the DASH diet, to help increase the taste of your cooking without adding salt, you can add a variety of herbs and spices or find seasonings that are salt-free, like Mrs. Dash products. Are there any questions so far?
Do you know if Mrs. Dash is named for this diet?
I believe so. I think this was designed in line with that because it was already the label itself. Dietary approaches to stop hypertension.
Right. So I've seen it, but I never put 1 and 2 together because there are always no salt flavorings.
Yes. Yep.
That was going to be my other question, and maybe, sorry, Kathy, but I was going to ask, what are other ways to reduce salt? If you need to watch your salt, besides watching labels, are there other strategies for lowering your salt?
Sure. When you're cooking like pasta or rice, Anything, you can always season salt after it's done cooking, so don't add it before. That's a good way to make sure you know how much you're getting. That's probably the top one I can advise for. Sure, Kathy, you have a question?
When did they come up with this diet? It relates to what Scott was asking about.
Yeah, it started in the 1990s, so early 90s.
Yeah, and if memory serves me correctly, Mrs. Dash has been around for a lot longer than that,
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
believe. But somebody might want to research that.
nice. Okay, yeah.
I think it might just be a coincidence, but I could be wrong.
My other question
Sure.
to throw in there. So which would be monounsaturated fats? So how can I add monounsaturated fats?
Sure. So besides checking the label, I do believe fish is a high in monounsaturated, but also seeds, nuts, and legumes. A lot of plant oils.
Like olive oil would be a good choice then, olive oil or avocado oil.
Correct, yes.
I would also say that when I'm trying to eliminate salt but still get something to bring out the flavor, I use acid, whether a vinegar or a citrus, to kind of trick your tongue into thinking that it's getting salt.
Yes. I will add with citrus though, if you're on any type of medications, be careful with grapefruit because those can interact. So limit grapefruit, or at least check with your doctor.
I have one more suggestion, only because I can't help but throw it out there. So kosher salt, for example, kosher salt often comes with larger grains. And so if you read the labels on it, the 1 teaspoon for 2,325 milligrams is regular table salt. But kosher salt tends to be lower in sodium. So if you are watching your salt, that's one thing that you can do is look for kosher salt. But not all kosher salts are equal. So there is a varying level of sodium within kosher salts as well. So I think it's the Red Diamond one that has the lowest sodium per teaspoon, and it's only 280 milligrams of sodium per quarter teaspoon. So you end up being able to use, 2 teaspoons of that kosher salt versus the teaspoon of regular table salt and still be within your limits. So that's an option for people as well.
Oh, thank you.
And to answer Kathy's question about Mrs. Dash, I just looked it up because I was curious, and Mrs. Dash started in the early mid 80s, so it did predate the Dash diet. But the creator of Mrs. Dash actually created it to be a salt-free seasoning because she was trying to cook more healthfully for her family.
Wow. Okay.
So there you go.
Use information.
Nice. So then maybe it did start before the 90s. I just know that the National Institute of Health helped fund the research.
Well, thanks, Janine. So if there's no more questions or comment about DASH diet, I would like to move on to the next diet, which is Mediterranean, and I'll hand that on to Tammy.
Thank you, too. Hello, everyone. I'm Tammy, and I'm going to talk about the Mediterranean diet today. So as the name suggests, Mediterranean diet originates from Mediterranean basin, or the cradle of society as historians call it. The ancient Roman is believed to start the diet by combining the model of Greek diet and other dietary habits where the triad of oil, bread, and wine, as you can see on the corner of the slide, become essential elements in daily meals. Next, please. So the Mediterranean diet is not necessarily a single diet with a strictly regimen plan, but rather a nutritional model or social practice where UNESCO defines it. The diet is a combination of common food types and healthy eating habits from different regions, such as Greece, Spain, Italy, France, Portugal. And as you can see on the screen, this is a Mediterranean diet pyramid It was first introduced in 1993, and the pyramid is pretty much sum up the recommendation and basic how you say it, and basic principles that one should follow if they want to follow Mediterranean diet, which a healthy and balanced meal include a lot of olive oil, vegetable, fruit, whole grain bread, legume, beans, nuts, seeds, and then the preferred source of protein in this diet often come from poultry, fish, and seafood. Refined grain, processed food, sweet, like added sugar beverages, and especially red meat is not necessarily recommended in this diet. So this diet has been ranked the best diet by the US News for a reason. The diet has many research and data have shown that diet can be beneficial to several demographics. It can lower the risk of dry asthma and wheeze. In general, the Mediterranean diet is linked with lower the risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and by consuming a lot of olive oil, it helps raise the high density lipoprotein level and lower blood pressure or blood glucose. Recently, researchers have also found that Mediterranean diet can help improve cognitive performance in older ages. Next. So as you can see here, Mediterranean diet can be a very healthy and balanced diet with very colorful to the eyes, very tempting to the stomach too, besides bringing a lot of benefits. So the common dishes in the diet usually include fish and seafood, like you can see on the slide. Seafood stew, krill, and baked dishes from fish is often consumed. Toast with vegetable, fruit, or salad with a lot of legumes, different type of herbs, spice, especially garlic, onion, tomatoes, couscous too, is often recommended. And at the end of this presentation, we will have a demo of the Shakshuka egg dish that you can see on the screen. And that's for my presentation. Is there any question?
I have a questions about the red wine. So you did mention that the Mediterranean actually include red wines in the diet. So can you elaborate that particular items?
Yes. So
and its health benefit?
traditionally, the Mediterranean usually come with red wine in every meal or at least once a day. As recent research have shown that red wine, when consumed moderately, can actually bring benefit, but everything needs to be in moderation because it's still a type of alcoholic beverages. So if one person tend to are more alcoholic.
Alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alcohol abuse, then they should watch out more carefully with that.
Oh, I see. Thanks, Tammy. I just think red wine is a very interesting item in the diet. Janine, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to add for red wine specifically, similar to dark chocolate, if people have heard, the reason that there are benefits to red wine are the phytonutrients or phytochemicals, if anyone has heard of this term. It's basically nutrients found specifically in plants, which have it helps with oxidative stress in your body. So it helps with oxidation.
So I think that that's a nice plus, right? It means that if you enjoy your red wine, then you should enjoy it in moderation. I don't think it's advocating that if you don't drink wine, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to add it into your diet. But if you do, then you can certainly enjoy it. Same thing with dark chocolate. If you enjoy chocolate, enjoy a piece of dark chocolate, and know that there are some health benefits to it.
I will add too, similar to the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet is very similar in its principles and practices. So they both don't tell you to avoid alcohol, but they tell you to limit and make sure you're getting not too much. Don't overconsume.
Yeah, thank you for your response. I think I agree with moderation is the key for any type of diet. And yeah, it's just like a good general principle to pay attention on. So no food groups are excluded.
I have a question. If you cook with the red wine and not drink it, do you still have the similar effects as drinking it? As far as the phytonutrients?
So I can only assume that when you cook with red wine, the temperature will have some effect chemically on the wine. So it might not bring the same effect when you consume it fresh.
You're probably getting some of the benefits, but not all of the benefits.
Yeah.
Is I think a good answer there. And also you're probably not adding as much of it to your dishes as you would drink in a glass. If you think of a glass being 4 or 5 ounces, you're not likely getting that same equivalent amount through cooking with wine. So you might just get, a small bit added in here and there and maybe reduce properties because of the cooking. But it doesn't hurt, right? So you can splash wine in.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I noticed on the pyramid at the beginning, your sweets, meaning cookies, cakes, are reduced to only once a month?
Yes, so that's the recommended. They don't necessarily encourage consumption of added sugar beverages, or if sweet come from natural sources like from fruit, then it's fine. But then added sugar like from Coke, drinks, yeah, then it should not be consumed more than once a week.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks, Tammy, for introducing us to the DASH diet. All right, let me quickly erase some lines on our presentation here. All right, so moving on to the next diet, before diving into this new diet, I want to address a finding of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. The foundation estimate that about 500,000 of Americans younger than age 65 have some form of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. So why do I mention this data in this diet? So the MIND diet stands for Mediterranean dash intervention for neurodegenerative delay. So to put this in a simple term, this means this diet have a potential of prevent and or slower the aging process of the brain. It was developed by a nutritionist. Her name is Martha Claire Morris. She is based in Rush University Medical Center. She did study that was funded by the National Institute on Aging. Her goal of the study that she ended up come out with the MIND diet was to lower the risk of Alzheimer's disease by promoting a diet that consists of brain healthy foods. So the principle of MIND diet is they combine the food groups from both the DASH diet that Janine had just presented to us and the Mediterranean diet, which Tammy just talked about. And they combine several food groups from these two diets that are known to support brain health. This diet especially emphasize the consumption of berries because these fruits, the berries, are very well known for their amazing content of antioxidant and vitamins, which is a superfood for our brain. So there are currently no specific guidelines for the MIND diet, but researchers have been coming up with a list of 10 foods that they encourage us to eat more, to consume more, or major food groups that we should consume in this diet, and 5 avoidable foods, which I will show you in this next slide. So you see the picture on the left right here. You see how they put the food groups on top of like a brain-like looking picture. So this emphasizes that these foods have something to do with your brain health. So to point out, since I mentioned that the MIND diet is the combination of DASH diet and Mediterranean diet, we can actually do some review here. So we can actually spot some food groups from the DASH diet, which are whole grains, berries, nuts, carrots, and beans. Those are the popular food groups from DASH diet. And then we have the food groups from the Mediterranean diet, which are olive oil, fish, poultry, tomatoes, and red wines, and vegetables. So you can really clearly see the combination of the two healthy diet going on here. But for the MIND diet, I want to especially highlight the importance of berries. Berries fruit contain a high level of antioxidant. This is a compound that protects your brain cells from damage by harmful free radicals. Berry fruits also change the way our neuron communicate in our brain, and these changes in signaling can prevent inflammation in the brain that contribute to the neurological damage. And also the chemicals in berries improve both of our motor control, which is our ability to control our action, as well as the cognition control, which is which regulate the way we think, the way we reasoning things. So that's why they emphasize berries help our brain with the aging process. On the right picture right here, there are 5 food groups that not necessarily you need to stop eating this or you cannot eat this, but it's something you want to avoid on like a on like a daily basis or eat with precaution or moderation. And they are butter, margarine, cheese, red meat, fried food, pastry, and sweet. Well, so that is the sum of the My Diet. Do you have any questions? Any concerns?
When you say berries, are dried fruit, like dried berries, similar with the fresh berries?
That is actually a very interesting question. I honestly haven't thought about dry or fresh berries, so I might need some expert help here.
I can chime in there. I would say that the dried berries are also highly nutritious, but when it comes to the dried berries versus fresh berries, there's going to be a difference in the serving size. So dried berries have a smaller serving size, usually a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup, whereas the serving size of fresh berries is going to be a cup. And one of the other great things, aside from all of the benefits that Tu pointed out, the amazing levels of antioxidants and polyphenols, is the really high level of fiber in berries in particular. So berries contribute immensely to your fiber for the day. So a cup of berries usually is about 7 to 8 grams of fiber, which is amazing. An apple is usually 3 to 4 grams. So you get a good bang for your buck in terms of fiber when you add berries. And berries, the fiber, especially like a high fiber diet, has been linked most recently to gut health, and it really improves the microbiome. So the more fiber you can get. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains in particular are really healthy for you. And then berries are certainly going to contribute to that in a significant way. So yes, you can do dried, but remember your serving size is smaller.
I have a question about, so I heard that the sugar levels in dry fruit and fresh fruit can be different.
That's where you have to watch your labels. So a lot of dried fruits are just dried fruit. It is concentrated, right? So they've dried them, they've removed some of that moisture. So that's where the serving size is lower because everything has been concentrated. So a smaller serving size should contribute the same amount of not added sugars, of natural sugars as fresh berries if you're eating them in the correct serving size. But some dried fruits do have added sugars. So mangoes, for example, mangoes can come without any sugar, but you can also get dried mangoes that have been sweetened. So you have to look at your labels if you need to, if you're watching your sugar level to make sure you're getting the no added sugar or the unsweetened version of the dried fruits.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. So looking for unsweetened dried cranberries versus sweetened cranberries.
So that's a hard one because cranberries are so naturally tart that most cranberries are sweetened. But other fruits like mangoes, even dried cherries, dried blueberries, you can get most fruits now dried. But the cranberries are a really hard one to find unsweetened just because they're so naturally tart that typically the dried cranberries are sweetened. But raisins, for example, those are not sweetened. They're just naturally sweet because of the concentration.
And I would just add that not to put a plug in for Trader Joe's, but Trader Joe's carries the freeze-dried berries, which are fantastic, a number of ways, but most of them do not have added sugars to them. It's just the naturally occurring sugars that happen in the fruit itself. But definitely look at the labels. But I love the freeze-dried strawberries at Trader Joe's, either pulverized in my blender and then sprinkled on things. It's really beautiful, but then it also gives you the benefit of the goodness of the antioxidants in the berries, or mixed in with some plain yogurt is also really nice.
All right, thanks for the expert reply. I feel like I learned a lot about cranberries. I actually always wonder why I keep adding, like, why dry cranberries usually have sugar added, but now I get it. It can be very tart. All right, so I would like to move on to the next diet, which will be presented by Scott. You ready, Scott?
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott, and I'm going to talk to you about the ketogenic diet. This was developed in the 1920s by a doctor as a therapeutic remedy for children with epilepsy. And I would imagine has something to do with nutrients that you would get, probably electrolytes that you would get from foods that are cut out in this diet, specifically potassium, calcium, and sodium that play a really big role in muscle movement. And so if you reduce that in the diet, it would help to prevent epileptic seizures. However, anti-seizure medication became available, and with that, the need for a therapeutic remedy was no longer necessary. So this diet kind of fell into obscurity until the last 20 or 30 years, when people started to practice with low carb diets. And then this was found on the shelf, dusted off, and brought into the mainstream. And really, in the last 5 to 10 years, it has become a wild crave for anyone who is trying to make a dollar, or people who are trending and they hear their friend did this, and so they want to try it out as well. So if you have heard about this and you want to know more about it, I'm about to give you the pros and cons of this diet. So the keto diet is certainly a short-term way to lose weight. You will, if you were to go on this diet, you will lose weight pretty quickly. The main aim of the diet, if you break it down to its components, is really to give the body more fat and more protein and less carbs, much less carbs, in order to train your body to use fat, which the fat would be turned into ketones, which is why it's called the keto diet. And it wants to train your body to use fat to run all the metabolic processes. So if you're using the fat as fuel, your body's gonna have less fat. Also, when you have fewer carbs, carbs are processed more quickly by the body than is fat. And when you have less carbs, then the signals going to your brain that tell you that you are hungry are going to be shorter. So it will reduce your appetite. And we already know, as I said, it's a therapeutic diet that helped with diabetes, lowering insulin flying all over the map when you're giving the body a lot of sugar. And it can help with cancer and the seizures, of course. Now, the cons might possibly outweigh the pros. So the biggest thing that I would think of is the fact that our brain only runs on glucose, only runs on something that you get when carbs are broken down to its constituent part. And the brain needs about, if you are not trying to solve string theory or something, your brain needs about 120 grams per day. With this diet, if you have a 2,000 calorie diet, it tells you to get about 5% of your calories from carbs, which certainly does not give you, that would give you about 25 grams of glucose for your brain to run on. That's certainly not enough. So your cognitive function is going to go down. Also, whenever you have an extreme diet, there's things that when you cut out, you get the good things that come with that as well. So fruits and vegetables is where we get our antioxidants and all of so many vitamins and minerals. So when you cut out fruits and vegetables and you focus on giving your body fats and protein, there's a lot of good stuff that you're not going to get. milk has a lot of sugar in it, natural sugar, lactose. So if you are trying to follow the keto diet, you're going to have to cut out milk and dairy products. But when you cut out milk and dairy, you're cutting out probably the best way to get your calcium. Without the calcium, your body still needs the calcium to make muscles move. So it's going to leach calcium from the bones, and that's going to help people get osteoporosis at a younger age. And the reason that you lose weight quickly on this diet is because your brain says, I don't have enough energy. What am I going to do? It has to get the glucose because that's the only thing that it runs on. So in order to do that, it has a process called gluconeogenesis, where it breaks down muscles, turns those amino acids into glucose through a pathway. So muscle weighs more than fat. So if your body is breaking down muscle just to run your brain, you are going to lose weight, but you're not losing the weight that you want to lose. You're not losing the fat, you're losing muscle. Without a sufficient amount of carbs in your diet, it's inevitable that you will experience hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, which can really make you feel lethargic and slow you down. Also, you're going to have an incredible amount of fat in your bloodstream. So you're going to have hyperlipidemia, which is high lipids in the bloodstream. So without the carbs, which is what your body uses the quickest and the most for its energy, your athletic performance certainly is going to be affected, because if you're doing a high intensity activity, your body has to use carbs and the glycogen, which is carbs stored in the muscle. And if you don't have that, you are not going to be able to do any high intensity activity for a sustained period of time, like more than a minute. So these are some reasons why the keto diet might not be useful for the average person. Another pro, as you see on this slide, is that you can eat bacon if that's what you like. But if you wanted to do this diet, I would strongly recommend that you talk to your doctor and see what they think, because this diet was created as a therapeutic remedy and wasn't necessarily created as a diet for someone to follow for a long period of time. So you would definitely want to talk to your doctor before you embarked on something like this. Does anyone have any questions?
A question about milk. Are you familiar with the China study? And
You'd have to be more specific.
It's a book that was written, and it talked about avoiding dairy. And their reason for avoiding dairy was because it actually led to the problem with the bones being weakened, developing osteoporosis, and also cancer in this particular book, but it's called the China study. So I was curious about that, because there's been this controversial milk or not milk, and causing more of a problem with the bones if you drank milk. But you made a statement that we get most of our calcium and bone building from milk and dairy.
So cutting out calcium and cutting out milk from your diet certainly will not improve your bone health. Now, we have up until your mid-30s is when you are loading up your bones with all the calcium that it can take. Now, once you get beyond that age, the amount of milk that you have, or the amount of dairy, or the amount of calcium that you get, is not necessarily going to help rebuild the bones stronger. But if you give your body, as I said, if you give the body the calcium that it needs, it will prevent the body from breaking down bone in order to get the calcium that it needs. Also, all books are, the purpose of a book is to sell money, and everybody now is creating diets to sell money or sell books and make money. So I would be interested in knowing who funded the study, who wrote the book, and what their ulterior motives might be.
Can I add in add in here? I think both of you bring up good points. Scott's point on looking at these diets, and I think we've looked at a couple of different diets today and wanted to bring in the keto diet because it's somewhat controversial, is that it's really important to know where the information is coming from and really look at the totality of the evidence and what's there to support it. And so the ketogenic diet is certainly very on trend. There's a lot of people jumping on it. I have to tell you, my husband did it for 2.5 years. And as a dietitian, it was very hard to watch. He's now gone vegan, so we're in a different direction now. But you have to really look at the totality of the information that's available and the research, and look at who's funding different studies, and really base your decision on looking at that whole body of evidence. In terms of eliminating calcium, so if you have to eliminate calcium, you do need to be concerned about if you have to eliminate dairy for whatever reason, and many people do have to limit the amount of dairy because they're lactose intolerant even, right? So if you have to limit the amount of dairy, then where are you going to get your calcium? So then it's going to be really important to get your dark leafy greens, because that's a good plant-based source, or your whole grains, whole grain cereals, or some of the alternate milks that are available, or alternative milks that are available. So soy milk, almond milk is an amazing source of calcium because almonds are naturally high in calcium, right? So I think the important thing is with many of these diets, they eliminate foods and food groups in particular, like whole food groups. And so when you do that, you really have to be cautious and think about what you're eliminating when you eliminate that food group. And if it's something like calcium, which is so important to us, then we need to find an alternate source. And so that would be important to think about as well.
I would also add that this is an extreme diet that would be very, very difficult, I think, for a normal human to follow. And it would take, it's going to take a lot of time to get your body into ketosis, which actually is kind of a disease state, because your body thinks, oh, I'm not getting enough energy, I'm going to go into kind of hibernation mode. But once you get into that state and you're starting to use more fat as fuel, God forbid, if you fall off the wagon and have a donut or you have some carbs, then your body's going to say, oh, thank God, I got carbs. It's going to kick you right out of that state. And then you're going to have to start all over again. Or it's going to get some carbs and say, oh, I have to store this right now. So I'm going to take these carbs, immediately turn that into fat. And so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, so it does have a place. It was developed for epilepsy, and it is used therapeutically in other diseases. So as Scott said, for cancer, there's certain types of cancer that feed on glucose. So if you can avoid giving your body glucose, and it's done using the ketogenic diet, then you can essentially starve those cancer cells. So there's certain types of cancer for which it's called for. It's not the treatment. It's done along with conventional treatments like chemotherapy and radiation for certain types of cancer. It's also used in Parkinson's disease because the medication that people use or take for Parkinson's competes with proteins for carriers across the blood-brain barrier. So if you can use a keto diet, you're essentially reducing the amount of protein, so you have less interaction with your drugs. So it's been effective for some people with Parkinson's disease, so you'll see it used there. And then in diabetes, because you're able to reduce the blood sugars or the glucose in the diet, which helps people to to control their blood sugars more easily. So it still is used therapeutically, but as Scott said, it's not easy to achieve. And usually when someone is using it therapeutically, they're being followed by a healthcare team. So they're being followed by their doctors and their nurses and hopefully a dietitian as well that are helping them to ensure that their diet is adequate, that they're getting all of the nutrients that they need, that maybe they are getting a supplement if they're missing nutrients, etc. So if it is something you wanted to try, then I would suggest talking with your doctor about it.
Well,
Also,
thank
I wanted
God.
okay.
Oh, anyone have other questions?
Questions. I was just gonna comment, but I know we're pressed for
Oh,
time.
do you want to go ahead and just?
Sure. No, I was just going to add on the topic of milk quickly, because I know that there are people who are lactose intolerant, can't consume these besides taking a lactase type of supplement. And also keeping in mind that plant-based dairy is not the same nutrients as regular dairy. The reason why dairy is, at least if you have low fat or fat-free, even when you need to get dairy in your system, the reason why it helps is because calcium and vitamin D bind together and it helps absorb better in the body. So even if you can't get dairy in terms of milk that way, there are plenty of sources for both calcium and vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for a quick comment. I think it's a useful piece of information about dairy, because I know there's definitely a population where they don't really consume dairy and then choose plant-based milk instead, and then they can be fortified with vitamin D and calcium. Well, I would want to move on to the last diet. So since Scott had present a very well, since he had give like a lot of helpful information about a keto diet, I actually have more to talk about this diet right here, which is called Atkins diet. But since we have talked a lot about the keto, and this diet is actually very similar to keto diet, which is a diet that really restrict on carb consumption. So I just want to quickly went over this diet since we don't have a lot of time left. So the Atkins diet was found by Dr. Robert Atkins around the 1970s, but this diet only really explode with the popularity during the 1990s for the purpose of weight loss. So you can see in this picture, like the first thing you can notice is that the guideline is kind of brownish. You cannot really see a variety of color, which you can tell this diet definitely eliminates certain groups of foods. So this diet, the way they do it are well known for 3 phases of the diet. So people who do Atkins diet will enter the first phase, what's called the induction phase. And in this phase, calories from carb, or the amount of carb you can eat a day, is very restricted and is limited to 20 grams of carb a day in this phase. So people who start the first phase of Atkins diet, they will start from the bottom of the Atkins pyramid here. And then for the second phase, what they call the balancing phase. So when people achieve the ideal goal that they want to lose in the first phase, they can now move on to the next phase of the Atkins diet. And in this phase, they can add around 5 more grams of carbohydrate a day into their diets. And then they will have more of a variety of food groups that I can eat, like fruits and vegetables right here. And then the second phase is like a transitioning phase between the very restricted carbohydrate first phase and the last phase, what they call the maintenance phase of the Atkins diet, where the people reach their weight loss goal and now they want to maintain that way. So for the last phase of the Atkins diet, people would move up the Atkins pyramid and now they can eat a little bit more of the food groups, but still restricted in carbohydrate for daily consumption. So the pros and cons of this diet is I can say this diet solely focus on weight loss in the short terms. So you definitely can get a quick weight loss result. You can obviously reduce blood glucose because it's obviously you don't eat that much carb, but the long term of maintaining a good blood glucose is questionable. This diet can be simple use because as you can see in the food pyramid, there's not a lot of food groups that you can eat to this diet. And the last pros I can think of is just like keto, you can eat some of the forbidden food groups like butter, cream, steak, bacon, because it's definitely full of low carb and high proteins, high fat diet. But especially for this Atkins diet, I really think the cons outweigh the pros because this diet is actually made a therapeutic diet. Just like keto, they are known to be used for people with epilepsy or diabetics. Other cons of this diet is it's go against the dietary guidelines. So if you know what my plate look like, is really focus on a portion size instead of the food pyramid. This diet can pose a health risk in increasing cholesterol. So if you follow this diet for a long period of time and make it your lifestyle, you definitely gonna consume a lot of fat and proteins. This diet can be really strict because you need to count your carbohydrate intake. It's definitely for every meals, and it is not very convenient. But last but not least, I want to mention again about a muscle loss during a low carb diet, like Atkins diet or keto diet. And just like Scott had mentioned, the body will break down glycogens from your muscles when you don't give your body enough carbohydrates for energy. And so by following this diet, people can risk losing their muscle mass other than losing the fat that they really want to lose. And for the Atkins diet, since it's so similar to keto diet, I don't want to talk too much about the pros and cons because it just how keto diet works. But I really want to highlight that Atkins diet, they really commercialize their products. So you definitely see these products, the Atkins products they usually display it by the pharmacy in Walmart. That's what I noticed. Or you probably see it at Target or grocery store. So I just want to emphasize that Scott mentioned some diet people might use it for a purpose of advocating for commercial purpose. So if you see these products, it doesn't necessarily mean that these products contain something magical that's gonna help with your diet. But rather than that, if you see these products, you might wanna have a questions whether buying these products better or cooking food from scratch and whole foods are better for your health. So that's just a sum up of the Atkins diet. Anyone have questions about this diet? No questions. All right, then I would like to move on to the conclusion of the presentation. So to sum up the lesson today, I think the bottom line of considering a new diet is to counsel with your health providers or your nutrition counselor to make sure it is match your health condition and whether it's work with your biological body. And it's important to look at the food groups of a diet and determine if the diet is leaning too much toward any kind of food groups and ignore the benefit of others. So for example, why the Mind diet encourage us to eat a balanced diet that include all the food groups. Keto or Atkins diets kind of exclude a good amount of fruits that even as is high in carbohydrate, it still gives you a good amount of vitamins and minerals. Last but not least, portion size is the utmost important factor that you should pay attention to in your diet because portion size ties closely to calories intake. And if you are not eating enough or too much calories, no matter what food you are enjoying, the energy imbalance from your portion will greatly reflect on your health. All right, so thank you everyone for participating and listening. Please follow us on Instagrams, or you can look us up on your browser. There'll be events, recipe, nutrition education that will be posted. Right, and then are we good for demos in the videos? I know we are running out of time.
Do you want to show, maybe start the Shakshuka video, because that might be something that might be different or unusual for people, and
Yeah.
see how wonderful it comes together and what a great job Scott did. And if people need to drop off, then we can always send through the recipes that we would demo today through Dr. Jen at the Timpany Center.
All right, yeah, so I will show the videos right now. Oops, I think my internet might be a little bit laggy. Let me refresh my page a little bit.
Too, if it's not working, maybe Scott could tell us just a.
Hi, I'm Scott, and today
Oh, there
we're
you
going
go. Okay, I can play it.
to be making shakshuka, which is an Israeli/North African breakfast stew. So the basic recipe is going to be bell pepper, onion, tomatoes, garlic, spices like paprika and cumin, salt and pepper, a fat of your choice. In this case, it's going to be olive oil, eggs, and I am going to use chorizo. You want to add your oil first. Some people put garlic in first, but I get my pan pretty hot because I want to get a good sear on my peppers and onions. And if I were to throw garlic in now, it's going to burn. So we have about a cup of onions. I'm gonna put those in first because they will take just a little bit longer than the bell pepper to cook. The onions had been in about a minute. Then I add the bell pepper, my sausage, I'm going to do my best to make sure that the cut side gets some skin time with the skillet. I also want it to have a nice sear on it. Now that I have the bottom pretty much completely covered, I'm just going to sprinkle the garlic on top. It is going to start cooking, but has no chance to burn. It's been going for a little while now, and now is when I want to add my spices. I want to kind of fry the spices to unlock the flavor, to get the oils going, and it's going to unlock its magic. This is how, pretty much how all your Indian restaurants or Ethiopian restaurants, African restaurants, they dry fry their spices before they make any stew. Now comes in some salt. You don't need to salt too much. You can always add more later. And pepper. Now it's time to add your tomatoes. Canned stewed tomatoes or diced tomatoes will work perfectly fine. You could also chop up fresh tomatoes. They will take a little bit longer to cook because you are going to have to burst all the membranes to extract the liquid from them. The final part of this is going to be the eggs. Now you want to make sure that this is quite hot because essentially we're going to be poaching the eggs on top. I am going to turn it down to about medium.
Scott has a nice one-handed egg crack here. For those of us who aren't as good at that, you can crack them into a little cup and then gently put them in.
So, because the eggs are going to be the most bland part of this dish, I'm going to give them a little bit of salt and pepper on each one, just to finish them up. And now I am going to put a lid on just to speed up the cooking process a tad. I just gave it a little shake and my whites are done. The yolks still have a little bit of play, but there's no way I can stop the cooking process. So they're probably going to be hard by the time it comes to eat it. So now that it's done, it would be a good time to add some herbs if you want: oregano, cilantro, parsley, green onion. It would be a good time to add those. You don't want to add any herbs too early, especially to a stew, because you'll cook the flavor right out.
I think it was a very good cooking demo. Thanks, Scott.
I think what's nice about it is it's a lot of pantry ingredients, so it's something you can whip together pretty much out of your pantry. And oftentimes we keep eggs, and they're going to be a nice protein source. So it's a pantry, a quick pantry meal, and so it's great for breakfast, but also good for lunch or dinner. Put that on a little slice of whole grain toast. Maybe add some spinach, and you've got a well-rounded meal on your plate pretty quickly. I have a quick question for Scott. So how long did it take, once you put the lid on, how long did it take for the eggs to cook through?
3-4 minutes.
Perfect. So super fast. I just saw the other day a green shakshuka. So it had a bunch of greens cooked down and it looked fabulous as well. So nicely done, Scott.
So I think we definitely don't really have time for my smoothie demo. So maybe I can post the recipes for everyone can try out.
Can you just describe what your smoothie recipe so people can look forward to the recipe?
Yeah, so I wonder if anyone can pin the video of my screen. I'm not sure how to do that. Let me... Okay, can you guys all see my screen, my demo screen?
We still see Scott's. Oh, here. There.
Can you see it now?
Now you should be able to pin it. Yes.
You can see my demo screen, right?
I pinned it for myself, so I see it.
I'm working on pinning it, but right now everyone sees you too.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me stop my video then.
There you go.
You still see me?
You could always double tap on
Gotcha.
Tu's demo, and it'll bring that up as the screen you're looking at.
All right. So right here, it's very simple ingredients. I actually make this smoothie every morning. So I have frozen strawberry right here. So I bought fresh strawberry and just cut it up and put it in Ziploc bag, because sometimes I feel like buying fruit fresh and then froze it yourself can be cheaper than buying frozen food in a package. So I have frozen fresh strawberries. I have frozen blueberries, which is the main ingredients of this Mind Diet Brain Healthy smoothie recipe. So I got this from Sprout. And the third ingredient would be ripe bananas. So I will use coconut almond milk for my smoothie because I don't drink dairy products. And like Professor Kubota mentioned, that almond milk is rich in calcium. And then I actually have vegan on honey. This is actually made from date nectar, and it can be pretty sweet, but it's a good choice for natural sugar in case you don't consume honey. So yeah, those are the ingredients that I will use for my smoothie. Does anyone want to stick around to see me putting in the ingredients, or it's all up to you? But I definitely will post the recipe for this Mind Diet and Brain Health smoothie on the Timpany Center's page.
Sounds good to me. Mary, would you like us to make the smoothie, or you okay just getting the recipe? I think most people are familiar with making smoothies. So we will definitely upload the recipe for that along with the shakshuka recipe from Scott. And then just want to make sure everybody knows that we've got another program coming up in March. Do you know the date of that too?
March 12th. It's in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sabine.
Sure.
So on March 12th is the next event. Yeah. And they're going to be doing for National Nutrition Month, which is the theme for National Nutrition Month is personalize your plate. And they're going to be highlighting cooking for one or two people. So smaller cooking. So that's going to be an exciting demo coming up. So we hope y'all will be able to join for that one as well. And as always, we're open to suggestions. So if you have any future topics that you would like to see covered, you're welcome to add those to the chat now or send an email to Dr. Jen or any of us. We're very open to hearing from you. Any other questions? You're welcome. Tu, thank you so much for putting this together with your team. Great job. Appreciate your work.
Thank you so much for 114 team. Thanks, Scott, for the very good videos. I think I will post smoothie videos as well. I'm editing it.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks for attending.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabine, are you gonna end the meeting right now? Because maybe as long as we have most of our 114 group, we could kind of talk about the data that we found for our group project, as long as we're here.
I think we should stop the recording though.
Yep, I'll stop the recording. One moment.